right, here we are, ready to start Onward Christian Soldiers. I've had to put aside my camera that I've been using for a while now, ever since the one that's the equivalent to this died. But that's okay, I guess. I've had a few hitches with this one, but the other one seems to be dying. All right. So for setup, I thought I had gotten most of the setup. There was one question I had in mind that I wanted to cope with, which is the event cards. I didn't see anything in the scenario that dealt with them, but then I saw something that I didn't realize from before. So let's work our way through this. So we have nothing to do with cards in here. This is just the division of the players. The game length is going to go from mid-October, November. And I got a +2 attrition here, which I think means it's a rain turn. But okay. And it'll end in the recovery phase of September, mid-October, 1099. So we've got, a couple of years, essentially, of play. For our forces, we have the number of ASPs and knights in each case. I thought I had dug these guys out, but I guess I did not. For each of the forces. Resources, each Crusader faction has 6 resources available without a line of communication for the first game turn. This is important because otherwise we can't recruit the Armenians or supply our forces or anything like that. In the original Crusades, it covered all that well enough because each force had its own resource pile. Quite a bit, actually, that they could carry with them. No Crusaders start on the map. Each leader and his strength points enters the game on one of these 3 spaces. Each leader must be placed in the army assignment of game turn 1 in one of those 3 boxes. Leaders from different factions can be in the same box. We already have all the Muslims set up here. The thing I was looking up had to do with the cards. So there's no mention of event cards here, but when we look over here, event cards in multiplayer games, now, there's nothing like this that I found to deal with non-multiplayer games. At the start of the game, if there's more than one player, each player starts with 1 card. Well, there's always more than one player. But beyond that, I'm taking that as some kind of rule that we actually start with some event cards. Are they only hold cards? What's up with them? I don't know. I kind of feel like we shouldn't, but yeah, let me see if there's some errata in this game. There's gotta be. There's a lot wrong with it. I did find some, but they don't cover any of the questions I really have. I think I'm just going to leave the event cards unallocated at the beginning because the way the rules are doesn't make a lot of sense, and I want them to kind of come up slowly. I don't want them, I don't want a bunch of randomness right at the beginning of things. Trying to think if there was anything else that really impacted me. So I'm going to do the setup for these guys. Yeah, so I found there were living rules that came out after these, and I found a set of errata on Web Grognards that didn't make it over to BGG. It seems like most of the rules changes are in the 2nd and 3rd, and like there's tits that are missing for the activations and stuff like that, and stuff along those lines. there's a lot that the game doesn't explain. Like, well, maybe the other rule book does, but like, you know, which armies you use for the various forces and stuff along those lines. Anyway, we're not going to deal out those cards because they're not in the setup rules. They're only in the event card rules. It's written the same way in the living rules, and there's no mention of anything that really felt like I had any huge confusion about it when I walked into, you know, when I went looking for the errata. Actually, it confused me a little bit because it said the Egyptian units, fleets, aren't on the map at the beginning of the game, yet they're directly listed as being in part of the setup. So I'm just going to play with the rules as written at the time of publication as best as I can. If I get to something where I need to look something up, we'll see if I can find something a little different. So, sequence of play. First thing we're at is diplomacy or reinforcement phase. And I guess we set things up. There's an allowance of diplomacy between the different factions, you know, within a given faith. And I don't know, Armenians, you can bribe them like just during your turn. You don't do it during diplomacy. So I don't see a hell of a lot that I really need to cope with outside of we're gonna build the armies and try to figure out if there's any kind of diplomatic facets that we want to add to the game right away. I don't think there are. I don't think the Crusaders are going to start any kind of interfaith fights right to begin with. What is here? These are muscles. That's an important place to take, I guess. The first thing I do is I'm looking at the Northern Franks, but for everybody I've given them 6 resource points that I'm just allocating like this so that I have points for them. Northern Franks have 3 different leaders, which means I can split my large force, 67 strength points, and I have 4 of these that'll be with Robert of Flanders as I like them. Now, the key thing that I want to consider here is the attrition value, and I'm going to go through my thought process as I explore the game here, because I can start in 3 different locations. There's no real reason for that. In terms of victory point cities, there aren't any here. I have to get down to Antioch or Aleppo or Edessa before I get any victory points. So whatever I capture, yeah, it might have some value in terms of resources, but it doesn't have any real value in the game. This is different from the original Crusades, which I think gave you victory points for every city, but you had to select your cities, and like, you know, you wouldn't pick 1-point cities for the most part. But you might, if you were kind of weak at that point and didn't feel like you could make it to Jerusalem or whatever, you know. Okay. So the key here is going to be my attrition check, which, let's find our, there goes my snot rag. Attrition, unfortunately, the index is not really good at this. Okay, movement attrition is going to be based on the attrition values that I move through, but also the size of my unit. So the tens digits are going to be a modifier to the die roll. There's a +2 for rain. And that's probably about it. So we look for, there is no regular attrition. It's 14, right? That's the number I have to work with? Yeah. So 14 is the number I have to work with. So with 67, I'm at a +6 on the die roll. which means I could go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 down to here. Problem with that, of course, is then I suffer possible point attrition if I'm stuck there, but we'll keep that in mind there. So I can get pretty far with a force. What I'd like to do is break my forces up so that they're just less than a tens digit in each case. So 67, if I divided that by 3, I could get that down to, like 22, 23 each. So I look at my chits and my liters, and the best chit I can get is a 16, which would let me move both of these liters twice. So that's what I'm kind of going to aim for, is because multiple attempts to move allow me to reduce my attrition. Short moves allow me to reduce my attrition. Stephen of Blois is not particularly useful to me. So I'm going to put him with Robert. Robert's going to have these. He'll have Stephen with him, just for the sake of things. And now I can divide up my forces. What I think I'd like to do is get down to 39 here and maybe 28 here. It's annoying to do this kind of division, but, because it's going to mean breaking more counters out, but whatever. Northern Franks are the biggest Crusader group. So I might actually want to split things up. What about something like Samosata here? That's got like 13 strength points in it. Not really worth anything. Edessa is controlled by Thoris. I would rather not take that because he's an Armenian. I don't know, maybe I can utilize him. Although taking Edessa might be worthwhile. I think Antioch is really my goal. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually put both my leaders here. And this stack I'll have to worry about in a little bit. But right now I'm busy doing the army assignment phase rather than the activation creation. I got to swap batteries. Swapping it quickly, I didn't have to set the date time. This is new. This is exciting. It doesn't keep a charge for forever, but it does keep track of the date time if I put a battery in relatively quickly. That's pretty cool. Okay, so that's going to be how I set up my Northern Franks, and then I'll do similar kinds of decisions with each of the other Crusader groups. So in each of the cases, I've set up 2 leaders. They each have 2 leaders. The idea being that I can reduce my attrition costs to some extent by splitting up my forces, even if they go over the same paths. This was a problem with the original Crusades, was the rules as written would allow you to basically split up the Crusader forces as much as you liked, and they could move through the same paths using plotted movement and basically pay no attrition. I modified those rules so that any Crusader forces following the same pathway would have to share the attrition roll, but that becomes kind of problematic because different players, could be following the same pathway, and it became kind of a question to me. That seemed to indicate that they'd all be taking the same impact, but you could still split things up tremendously and get everybody just by moving through different hexes and whatnot. Nobody's taking path A, and that's because although it's okay coming through to here, there's a big 5 attrition space there. I don't think that's worth dealing with at all, even if it is a shorter route, maybe out to there. I don't even know if it is. Attrition's the key factor, of course. But anyway, I didn't really want to send anybody out in that direction. So I've split up 2 going into B, 2 going into C. They've set those up, and now we're hitting the next thing, which is we did the army assignment. Remember, we can pick up an army and just negate it, essentially. So by giving troops to multiple commanders, it's not really hurting me. I just didn't want Stephen because he's so bad. In some of these cases, the leaders, so for example, Tancred is kind of interesting. He's a pretty good leader, but I have to have Bohemond holding the majority of the forces, and he's not as good in terms of he costs more to activate. Some of these others, so Robert of Flanders doesn't have as good a continuation role, so I would like him to take some, but the problem, of course, is I probably can't get 2 cards of 2 leaders each in any set, except maybe the Northern Franks. So we're going to have laggards and whatnot, but that's all right. We're not really facing the majority of the Muslim forces, so we're hoping we're going to be able to slap things out of the way. So for this, now for each player, and I gotta pull the chits for the Muslims as well. We're gonna throw everything in a cup for that player. Make a quick draw, and this is going to be done for everybody. So the Northern Franks are going to have 10 points to assess now, or to pay out. Now, Robert of Normandy is a 4-pointer, as is Robert of Flanders. 10 is not particularly good. I could, of course, have bought Stephen with his shitty points, but I don't want him. So I will be buying 2 cards of Robert of Flanders. I could throw a Stephen card in there because he could end up being independent as well. So that's what we're buying and throwing into the deck. And then we do this with each of the different players, including the Muslims. Yeah. The Muslims are somewhat more complicated because their stuff doesn't all start together. So I've got to make decisions as to, hey, what guys do I want to move together? We don't know, what we drew. Our opponents don't know what we're sticking in the deck. Killed my tee off. So I'm going to pause where we are here. I'm in the midst of this. I'm ready to do the Southern Franks, whatever, and figure out their cards. But I want to brew some more tea and maybe take a nap. I don't know. Maybe read the playbook, which can, not playbook, but this sort of quick start rules and playbook, yeah, which basically contains the designer's notes and whatnot, to look over those. I usually like to do that before I start playing, but I didn't get around to it. Yeah. Okay, picked out the cards for everyone by their point totals. Interesting things about the Muslims. They're big commanders. I don't know about Kaboga. Yeah, him too. They're heavier level commanders. These 3-star commanders that they have are decent commanders, but they have a high cost to activate. Of course, they're going to have the largest force, so it does generate something kind of problematic. So we got kind of a mix with them where, Maybe I moved each commander once or something, with the main guy intended to be creating reinforcements, probably. Although I don't have a main guy for the muscles. This is a 2-star there. I have pre-stacked my leaders so that I know what I intend to do when the cards are there. Now I just shuffle the deck and we will move on to the first activation. Now I got to grab myself a couple of dice, and then a random player has initiative, just really in case an event, one of the non-leader cards comes up for who controls it. I did read through this. It's got sort of like a light version of the rules, which is insufficient to play the game with, but gives you a good narrative, I guess, of them. I didn't bother. Then maybe lots of examples, I don't know. Then some play notes on sort of, you know, what the different players should be doing. Nothing too exciting there. A relatively limited development notes. Kind of surprisingly, I don't know, you know, it didn't really, it didn't feel to me like they really dug into the meat of the thing. Now, granted, much of this was already designed back in the original Crusades game. They did explain some things that they did away with in it. For example, carrying personal treasuries and stuff like that. And then, kind of an annoyingly, I don't know, a note on the title, and basically looking at it from the point of view of 2 criticisms of the title. One of which is that the song was much, much later than the Crusades, which is kind of like, okay. And the second of which is that it wasn't really meant as a military thing, but it is a marching song and everything. And I'm kind of like, damn it. We all know what the title is. It's one of those cutesy Richard Berg titles. Both of the notes, the development and the title thing, were done by the developer. But, you know, I mean, it's like Simon Says, you know. Berg tries to slip these in. He got away with this one. So that's cool, you know. Anyway. So I guess, well, I need to grab dice. Dice is always important to me in a game. I need an 8-sider for who's going to go first. I'll just roll that right now. 3, 4, 5. We'll have the Southern Franks draw the first card. And then I just started looking at my rounded dice, because with GMT games and stuff that looks like this, I feel more comfortable with the rounded little dice, not the GMT style dice. And I saw I had some yellow ones, and I'm like, oh, that's cool. That'll be for the Muslims. Decided to go to the Crusaders. I went with these kind of dark, multicolored things. They feel right there. All right. Southern Franks are going to get the first card. What do they get? They get Jara Adaba. Jara Adaba is a northern Syrian back here. And, well, he wants to keep his points lower than a 14. That's my attrition number. We have to look at the attrition rolls here. They go into that 14, by the way. It's sort of like a magic number that they settled on right away and didn't have to modify. Although they might have modified some terrain or something there. So we've got 2 for a rain turn. This guy has 10 strength points. If I drop one off, I get a bonus. in terms of not having to have anything on the tens die. How many dice do I roll? Just one die. So to stay under 14 with this guy, what did I say? I got 3 against me. 11's then my target. As long as I go 5 or less, I'm okay. Now, I look here and I see I've got another one of his cards not to be used, which means this is going to have to be his whole move. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3. Ooh, this is not pretty. I could get to there 5 and I'd be safe. I'm going to go to here. Ugh, I don't want to pick these guys up. But this is an entry hex to the city. I can be there, I think, safely. Well, if I don't pick up the army, I'm okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And into the city. And that means I have some chance of some attrition. But I don't hit it. I don't want to be stuck out on a point at the end of the turn, or I take the point attrition. So, yeah. And then he draws the next card. And it's going to be a Godfrey of Bouillon. I take a look at what's here, and I see that I've completely split them. Godfrey gets to go twice. So now we calculate his out. I don't need this die for a while. Okay. Now Godfrey has some money. I'm going to try to bribe me some Armenians before I do anything. Take a look at the Armenians. I give them a certain amount of money, and I roll a die, essentially. Now, do I get to throw my leader value in there, or is it just resources? It looks like it's just resources. Supposedly there's a bribe performed marker. I'm going to look for that. I don't think I have it. The problem with the Armenians is that if I bribe them, somebody else can bribe them away from me very easily. So I'd rather maybe hold my money. Gosh, I don't know. Do I want to? Yeah, I'll drop a bribe on them. I'm going to throw, I guess, $4 bribe on the Armenian end. See, this is useful in keeping my army together. That's the problem. I just don't know that they're terribly worth it. Yeah, let's move Godfrey without that. So I've got 28. This is the knights. They don't count. So that's a +2. +3, +4 due to weather. So I can go like 4 safely. Oh shit. I forgot something with him. He has a chance of continuing on a 1 or a 2. Let me do that. Yeah, he would get a continuation. Before I do the Godfrey card, let me do that continuation. So now I have, again, 2 plus, once again, I can go like 5 5 points. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's go to Latakia. I get another possible continuation, which I don't get. Okay, for Godfrey, we move down here. That's 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Plus a die gets me at most 14. So now I have a 1 through 3 to continue, which I do not get. So the Godfrey card is gone. And now what's nice is I have him on the top of here, so I know who went last. I can just kind of keep track of that. I got to swap batteries. I'll do a little bit more. Pulled a Mosul Turk, and I realized, I need to write down victory conditions for the Turks. The Crusaders, it's not until Antioch falls or some late date, I don't remember when, but nowhere this year. I'll come back with what I decided. I don't think anything's impacted my decisions yet. Pick 6 of the victory point cities. I decided Antioch is going to be impossible to hold. But Damascus is worth too much not to go for. So that's going to be one of my secret victory conditions at 15. Antioch's just too much. I went Edessa, Aleppo, Hama, and Homs, which Edessa's up here. Yeah, taking it from the Armenians, fine. And then I was left with one left. Melitene is probably the easiest I could have gone for, but it's also not worth much. I don't want to take stuff that's coastal. I feel like that's where the Crusaders are likely to make their advances. So then, instead of the 2 points for Melitene, I went for the 3 for Harenk, which puts a potential, it looks like I'm going for Antioch or whatever. And we'll see what we do with that. I've got kind of an interesting position because the Mosuls kind of want to hoard their forces and push them forward against the Syrians eventually, once they're weakened, or against the Crusaders if they expand into places like Aleppo. So I kind of want to see how things develop before I play that out. Damascus is really a stretch, but I want one of the big victory point things so I have a shot at dealing with, if the Crusaders manage to get Jerusalem. Now the other Muslims, the 2 Syrian Muslims, use these victory points. I'm going for something bigger here. 1, 2, 3, actually, I'll just go 4 here, because this is a town that prevents me from taking the ugly kind of point hit. I'll stop there. That allows me to put this there, taking capture of it. I went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 for the weather, 7 for having 10 strength points. I can't get 14, but I do get a continuation check. I get that. Now I want to push forward. 5, 6, 7, 8 into here. I'm stopped. 8, 9 for the size of my army. 13, I'm okay. And now I have a fight against these. Now they will defend in the city, I guess. That should be one of these. That should be one of these. Just checking. Okay. This is going to be my first battle. The Armenians automatically do a D. We have no cards or anything. We compare the strength. It's 10 to 1, which means I hit that 3 to 1 bonus, so I'm not going to get hurt too badly. I have to roll my battle formation. I have a Muslim 2. So I roll. I get a D. That's going to be a Muslim attacker. D versus D is a 0. So we get no modifiers from that. Comparative strength, we know what it is. It's 10 to 1. I think these just continue up. So I have a plus 10. Plus 9. I don't know where the Syrian gates are. I'm hoping they're on the board somehow. Yeah, I'll have to look that up. Is that this? I don't know. Okay, plus 9. I don't know. So I get a 19. Which would be a 10-30. I lose 10% of 1, rounded down, because I'm the winner. We can look this up over here. Winning force 10% of 1 is nothing. 30% of 1 for the losing force. They lose this. There goes an Armenian. I have to give a strength point up. This is Hassan. I'll have 9 in there. Oh no, I don't give a strength point up. This is just a town. I capture this, which I don't know where. Like I've got these here. Looking to make sure that's what's supposed to be there. I go here. I could roll a continuation. Why not? We get it again. And now, once again, we were looking at, I have a strength of 10. So that's 3 just for existing. 4, 5, 6 here again. Can't possibly lose due to attrition. So we're again in that same kind of whatever we were at, plus 9 or whatever. We don't get as good a roll. We total an 11, which is 5 and 15. Again, we're not hurt. We take that. Our continuation ended there. That means we're going to be on Hassan for the next, well, we're going to be on the Muslims for the next action card. Now, if I look over here, all of the Mosul Turk cards are actually in play right now. Kerboga is not, but he's not on the board yet. And I'm going to need to charge this battery back up some more. But we've gotten, a few moves in, get an idea of how this system sort of works. We've gotten some combats in, but they were, trivial. Pick is Raymond with the Southern Franks. Now, unfortunately, I have only 2 Raymond cards in there. I didn't split the forces, but I'm taking Adamar with me. And he ended up with, let's see, he had 50 strength points here, which puts him at 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, plus 5 puts 16. So I lose 2 strength points. I'll take them off of Adamer. It really doesn't matter because we're sort of one complete force. Now I get a continuation check, which I don't make. I've got a little bit of a problem. I've got to make it to someplace safe, otherwise I take the point attrition as well, which I don't want to do. Now, Godfrey is allowing me in here so I don't get stuck behind, because we don't want to fuck all the Crusaders up. We have some big tasks to do, and I don't want to just hurt my supposed allies. See what our next one is. Our next one is a Soakman. This will be his only card. Getting about 1 bonus. The Muslims have a -1 to their die roll. I also haven't been spending resources to advance. Raymond probably should have. He may have to very shortly. But anyway, Soakman stopped at Jericho in order to make sure to capture the town. I feel like the southern Syrians have a bit of time to wait until stuff happens. I don't want to go attack the northern Syrians yet, just like the Muslims don't. Although I might be willing to let them take the brunt of the hit. It's not absolutely clear to me what is the victory situation. So for the Muslims, Antioch and Damascus and Jerusalem are all important. So I have 20 versus 10 up there. I feel like I've got a pretty good situation. I might actually want to support the northern Syrians, but not all that much. It's dropped a bit on the Armenians yet, for whatever reason. So the Armenian card doesn't do anything. I'm still on the same guy drawing. He gets Ridwan, who's going to be a North Syrian leader. Now this is the army commander. This is his only card, and what he really wants to do is raise forces. So this will be his entire action. And we have a has recruited this turn. I'll put that over on Ridwan here. To do this, I think I'm only allowed to do it once per turn. I have no modifications to the die roll. If I do it in Aleppo itself, and what do? I think I just roll a die and get that many troops. So I'll be getting 6 additional troops with Ridwan. Raymond is going to move up to here so that he can get supplies from Partsapart, and he'll then have some income there. He has 48 strength points. Versus 2. So that's 24 to 1. That gets me like a plus 24 to the die roll. But included in all of that, I have to roll his leadership value, which is a 3. So he'll be doing an impetuous charge versus a defense. This is going to be a Crusader attack, impetuous charge versus defense. That's a plus 4 more. So I'm at plus 28. Oh, there's the town, so it drops it to plus 27. I think the die roll runs out here. 70% of 2, rounded up, will kill these. Oh wait, this is not a town. Oh fuck. This is a city. Ruh-roh. Maybe I want to move further. So my total points were plus 4, plus 5, plus 6. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 13, 14, 15 down to Alexandretta. If I spend my $6, I can take 3 off that. That brings it to 12. It's not optimal, but since that's not just a town, that's an actual city, I don't really want to invest it. It could probably assault it, but who knows? What was I at? 12, 16, I think I lose 2 more strength points and spend all of these resources that I have for the turn. Get a continuation, but I've made my way into a safe space. And now we get South Syrian Tripoli. He's only got 1 card. Able to get a continuation there. Yagi Sihan came up next. I don't think I want to move him. It's just too dangerous that I won't get a continuation. I'd have to do a stop to pick up troops in Harank, and I kind of want it fortified and defended. Not happy. The northern Syrians are in an ugly position in this game as much as in the old Crusades game, where, yeah, they have decent forces and whatnot, but they're seriously in potential trouble in terms of, like, they're the ones facing the brunt of the Crusaders right away. Robert of Flanders was hoping to get a continuation. He only has 1 card in the deck for himself. I'm gonna suffer here, but there's really not much choice. I could run further and have suffered more. I was hoping for a continuation, use my points to advance. The Armenians don't really help because I can't enter their cities. I can collect them and use them as forces or whatnot, but I mean, I can walk through their towns, but I can't utilize them as towns. They end up being like a 1 point location that I'm at. So yeah, I'm having a real struggle getting across Anatolia right now to where I can start capturing stuff easily. I mean, look, I could fight against the Armenians. I could fight against the Armenians and try to take their things, but that seems painful too. Towns are what I really want because they're easy to grab, and then I can, base out of them and try to siege stuff. But again, I won't have the resources. Also advances. Now he has a relatively small force. I pushed him so that there was some risk of losing something, but then he didn't get a continuation, so I don't get to move forward to join Raymond in Alexandretta, which was kind of my hope, preparing, for the siege of Antioch or whatever. Probably another pretty sunset. Just getting a lot of pink in the sky on this side. The sunset's on the other side. I've been having a hard time getting up here to play this. Just not feeling too excited right now. But, wow, it looks relatively yellow compared to the other camera. Which is worrisome. It's okay. Usual computer fuckery. I've given up on whatever game I was playing before. That, of course, sets me into the hunt for other things to do on the computer that eat up time, and sometimes it's worse than games. But also, I went out, I had to mail something. I could have just put it in my mailbox, but I haven't had very good luck with that. Like 2 out of about 4 or 5 things that I've sent out most recently have not gotten delivered. So I brought it down to the mailbox. We'll see. It may or may not. In this case, I didn't have to pay postage, so it's not as big a deal. But yeah, I figured I'd play a couple more cards. I just, I don't know, the fact that it's just, you know, I can flip over a card, I have to do some figuring and stuff, and then I'm kind of fatigued after doing one or two of them. I constantly have to check is the leader card versus what I didn't put in so that I know, because like here, Robert, Duke of Normandy, I do not have another chance to move him. Which is, okay, he's here. Robert of Flanders is there, okay. Normandy is the smaller one. All right, but with a good repetitions. I'm kind of afraid to do a siege just because I'll be stuck out in a point, you know. Decent number of continuations and made his way all the way up here to Marash, which is nice. It's someplace where I didn't suffer any attrition getting there. Unfortunately, I have a lot of these points. Not going to be able to use them, I think. Might be able to use them on point attrition. We'll see. This good old Tancred here was able to run down and take St. Simeon. These aren't that important, but I'm like, let's capture them. They could be of use to us. It is spreading the Crusaders about in ways that maybe we don't really want to be, but I'm also like, yeah, I kind of would like to hold different locations just for my own sake, I guess, more than anything else. Now there's the Gates of Syria. I don't remember where that is. I remember not knowing where it is. I suspect it's this. Oh, there it is, Syrian Gates. It is between these two spaces. Now that had some kind of special rule having to do with it. I wonder what it was. I haven't gone over it, so. I thought it would be which was under weather. I don't remember what it's under. This was a case where I could not figure out where it would be in the rules, but there are living rules, and this is one advantage. I searched Syrian Gates. There's like Cilician Gates there too. Syrian Gates, I guess, is this space right here, because what I found, if I can find the combat tables, here they are. An army defending the Syrian Gates doubles its ASP. Kind of a totally random thing. There's like one place on the map that gives you that, right? It is the only place that gives you anything like that. It just doubles the strength points you have. And it's also not absolutely clear what it is. I think it's, you know, I don't know. I don't know if it's B7 Alexandretta or actually the line, because it's possible you could get stuck on that line. It is not mentioned in the map stuff. It's not mentioned here. It's not mentioned in the map itself as far as I know, because it didn't come up on my search. It's not here. There's Cilician Gates, which don't seem to do that, and seem very clearly to be on this point. I'm guessing it's this point, B7, but I don't know. Because you can't actually fight on the pathways. You can be kind of on a pathway, but yeah. And if it were Alexandretta, well, first of all, that's already a town and whatnot. So yeah, I just don't know. Not that big a deal when you get somebody like Robert of Normandy, except there's two Roberts and they look exactly the same. You kind of have to really zoom in to see. Where you've got the other leader here in the cards, you just paw through the cards. But with someone like Balduke, where I know both cards are in the deck, all I had was Karbolga here, I have to then search through all the discards to see, has he gone yet? Now, again, if you were playing, you know, pretty solidly straight through, maybe you remember this stuff, but maybe not. You know, it's often hard. This is essentially a chit pull game. It's often hard to remember which chits have been drawn, even if they're in a pile, whatever, and you can search through them. The cards, I don't think, make it any harder. Balduc's only a level 1, so I probably don't want to recruit troops with him. I probably want to recruit my troops here with this guy, but he's not in a city. Ugh. So maybe I take my recruitment with Balduc. And he has not gone yet. I have a problem here. Balduc over here has 1 star, and Hassan has 2. Over here, Hassan only has 1 star. I'm guessing, I'm gonna drop these forces here. I'm guessing that Balduc, because his card couldn't even activate if that was the case, if I had him stacked that way. So I just wouldn't do it. I kind of assumed they would have the larger troops with the more important leader, but they did not. I'm just going to fix that right now. But yeah, I think I'm going to recruit troops with a lousy 1-point guy. That's going to give me like a -3 on the recruitment, I think. I'm not sure. -2 maybe? Let's take a look. One-star leader is -2. Yeah, so we'll do it there. Can't actually do it. It has to be my commanding officer who does the recruitment action. He could trigger it on a different leader. So yeah, gosh, I don't know. We look around for money, and we kind of don't have any. Do I have Malatine on here? I don't, but it's one of my potential locations that I want. So maybe I'll go for that. We'll start a siege. See how it goes. You know, it's just the muscles. They can afford to capture something back there, I guess. All kinds of options. Now I have Samosata, which actually has an SDR of 2, so I can pay off some of this. But I just moved him there, and if I end my movement there, I think I'm allowed to siege it, but I don't remember. I don't remember what I'm allowed to do and what I'm not interacting with the cities. This is, there's a lot of complexity here, and I don't know, it doesn't feel fun the way Kingdom of Heaven's sieges do, which is kind of a sad thing. I don't know, they have like, you're drawing cards and stuff for them, I think. I don't remember. I just remember Siege being a big deal in it, but I don't remember the game all that well. Towns, we can just grab towns. Yep. Cities, capturing a city. Okay. We can siege attrition the city. I don't know how effective that's going to be against 1 strength point. If we wanted to do that, we would have to ravage. So what we've got to find is what happens when we first walk into a city. And you start or move into a city and succeed in a continuation. Okay. And I think we have to succeed in a continuation no matter what. So we're going to go there. We have a 2. It's not very hopeful. We don't succeed in our continuation. But that's not our only Balduc card. We have another one. And I'm pretty fatigued right now after playing through a few of these cards. So I'm going to put these here. Remind me that Balduc's going next. Find something to amuse myself and maybe not come up very much, because I'm really not feeling it yet. Games often take a while for me to kind of start feeling like playing them. I got to get used to the patterns, and it's hard to get used to the patterns when you're walking away all the time, but I want to walk away all the time because I'm not used to it. Okay, we got a Crusader fleet card without the event to bring the fleets into play. Nobody can move them. So we draw the next card, and it's Stephen of Blois. Now Stephen is assigned over here. What's nice though is I only played whoever he's with once, so I can actually activate him and pull him out as an independent leader. I'm not putting those independent leader markers on the board. I really should be, but I feel like I'm able to keep track of this kind of thing. Now Stephen is with Robert of Flanders. So I could, because he's been activated once with Robert, that counts against him, but I could actually move him again. But there's 27 here, which kind of means I got to keep like 29 over here, but it does mean that I can pull Stephen out of there, I think. And maybe misunderstanding some things, and try to move him coming out of Robert of Flanders. I think. I'm going to have to look this up to check it. It's part of why I put Stephen in the deck, was this idea that, like, yeah, I can get a second activation with his little force. Now, Robert of Normandy is up here. I can't really join him. I could, as long as I keep the forces separate, but it doesn't do me a lot of good necessarily. Yeah, as far as I can see, I'm allowed to do this. So a leader can always move, activate other leaders with whom he's stacked at the time of his card is drawn, but well, this doesn't count as his, it wouldn't necessarily count as his army. Actually, I can't, and I'll tell you why, because I didn't drop the troops off first. Robert would have had to drop troops off, and then those troops would have moved, and so I couldn't pick them up. The fact that Stephen didn't have his own troops is what hurt me here. So I can't do what I was trying to do. Had I assigned the troops a little differently, I could have done it. Instead, I just got Stephen in there for no purpose. And now we think about Godfrey, who is here. I take a quick look. I've got 2 Godfrey cards, so now I have to look in here, see if he's been used before. Obviously he has if he moved here. So, okay, this is his last activation. Ended up moving down and joining Raymond for now. Just as a, hey, got a couple of activations off that. Wasn't charged any attrition, and now he's in a town, so it's cool. Raymond managed to get himself stuck outside a city. That's okay. You know, I mean, some of these guys are going to have to take point attrition. But then I draw an event card with him. So he's going to get an event card. Now, technically, I think probably everybody's supposed to have an event card, but I don't know what that means. So this is Papal Peace, play to affect an army, or even just a leader in the same space as Adhemar of the Southern Franks. It's here. He a bishop? Might be. This card nullifies a dissension card that has just been played against that space. That's pretty fucking limited. All right, well, we have that. And I'm going to keep it there instead of over on the board because I don't know what else to do. I'll put this here so I know that I have Bohemond coming next because, hey, we get another event card for him. Budamedes. Place the Budamedes counter with a siege marker of your choice in which you... Okay, so this can be held, in which you have ASP and or leaders participating. For every assault undertaken by that commander of the siege, add 1 to the die roll. Once that siege is ended, Budamedes is removed from the map. Only 1 can be in play at any one time. That's an interesting card to have. It makes sieges more attractive to the Sicilian Normans. But then we get to the second Balduc card. And I don't know what I'm doing with him. Balduc is the guy who moved up here to Melitene. This has a siege defense rating of 2. If I were to assault it, well, what the hell happens? An events table for... Yeah, so because we don't use cards, although there are some chits for some stuff, so I don't know. The Third Crusade uses an events table. All kind of weird shit going on here. We'll see what the rules say, but I get the feeling Second Crusade may use this, or may use some portion of it, or something. I don't know, or maybe there are no events. Because very obviously something like Budamedes cannot be in anything but the First Crusade. Dissension could. The assault table. So I have, with Balduc, 10 strength points. That's the most I can have. That gives me 10 to 2, because he has an extra defensive point there, which is 5 to 1 on the assault table if I go ahead with this. That's going to give me a +3 to the die roll. Make it +2. I'm not going to get the assault points that I need. If I start a siege, that ends my turn, and it puts me in the siege attrition point. I don't know. I don't know if I want to siege him. Or ravage the space. I do have some points available to me to pay off problems if they come up. Maybe. I don't know if point attrition allows for that. We'll see. It's kind of been hindering my willingness to engage in sieges, but I think the money does count. Or I could run away. I think I'm going to run away back to Samosata, because that way, when I get Hassan, I'll be able to roll for more troops over in Samosata. At a penalty, but whatever. And I cheated. I see Sokman had more troops to begin with. I thought that like the main leaders would have the major troops, but these setups were fixed. I'll get rid of his additional troops and leave all these other troops back here in Jerusalem behind. I could have assigned the army that way. The reason why that's important is Dukak here is only got 10 troops in Damascus. I think I'm going to try to move him, bring him up into play with this one way or another. And maybe try to get the northern Syrians to agree to let me utilize their cities to help defend against the danger of the Crusaders. To Hazan al-Akrad, where the Carte de Chevaliers will eventually be. And then I draw Hassan. As I said with Hassan, he's going to trigger, and I can put this in play for him, as he's my major leader right now, and try to muster some troops over there. I'm at -2 at Samosata, but I do get 3 additional troops there. Card is a useless Crusader fleet, which puts me to the sequence of play. We grab, whoa! I have carpeting over most of this that I don't clean enough, but like anything. But I have some wood there and my sock slipped on it. That's going to put me down onto the attrition phase. We'll come up and do that a little later. Right now, again, I'm taking it slowly. But that got us through the deck. Okay, so now we have the point ravaged attrition. We didn't ravage anywhere with anybody, but we have point attrition. The attrition value, okay, is going to be each unit that's just in a point is going to lose an ASP automatically. Doesn't look like we can buy this off. I was hoping we could. I saved points in the hopes of it, but yeah. We add the attrition value of the point to the tens digit of the army. This gives a forged rate. Then we roll a die. and it's the difference, the amount that the die roll is below. So we're going to have to look at some of these. So we take a look at Robert of Flanders as our first one, and he has 39. So that's 3 plus 3 is 6. He's in a horrible location. I was really hoping the money would help there. I roll a die. And he gets lucky. He only loses 2 strength points there, which I can take that way. And we're going to have to work our way through all the different guys who are on points and check them. It's not that many, but there are a few. Just these 3. And now the next thing we go to, I don't think we're going to have to do much here, is the recovery phase. All ravage removes are removed. Yeah, we don't have any ravages. Resources, none were spent, but I think these guys all go away. Their initial resources that they had. Assault points would be recovered. Dropped offs are removed. I don't think I had any of those. But there's other stuff that's not listed here, like independent leader and stuff like that, that probably also is removed at this point. It's just not mentioned. But essentially nothing happens for me. And we go into the winter of 1097. I'm going to play out the winter as well on this video before loading up. We do have to sort through these and, you know, set up again for what's going to happen. I think we're going to continue in the same sort of state, which is that for diplomacy, the Crusaders are going to work together. The northern and southern Syrians are going to kind of work together right now. The Muslims kind of trying to stay out of stuff. But yeah, for the most part, people are going to just, you know, there's no real reason to hinder each other. The Crusaders have to do well as a whole to win this. And the Syrians have to hold the Crusaders off for either of them to have much of a chance. Honestly, I think the northern Syrians are in a lot of trouble no matter what. By the way, I don't think I mentioned this, but if you have multiple powers, like if we were playing where the northern and southern Syrians were played by the same, they're still assessed as 2 different powers, and then they get the average of the points that the 2 get, which is not, you know, particularly great for them. In the original Crusades, I'm pretty damn sure that the northern and southern Syrians, that it was an 8-player game, and that the northern and southern Syrians were the first one to go. And I would play the 7-player version with, and I know I've said this before, with those 2 as the as the players that I collapsed out, because it felt like they were the same team, more or less. I just want to make sure about that initial money in this scenario, that it's only the first turn. For the first turn only, yeah. Oh well, you know, one guy used them. Maybe worse is the Armenians are not available to the Crusaders at all, because we didn't take anything that generates any points. And the Crusaders are not going to have any resource points. So the Syrians, the Muslims, they might play around with these. The Muslims probably do not want to, because they have to take, they are still interested in taking Melitene and maybe Edessa as well. But I could see like some sort of vague agreement of, say, the northern Syrians to move forces out of Edessa and make it easier for the Muslims to take that. I don't think we really care about it, do we? Odessa's a nice place for anybody. But, again, until the Armenians get out of there, it's not really something they can take. Historically, the Crusaders took Odessa and created a county over there. I don't remember who did it. Anyway, I feel like it was some of the Sicilians, but they took something else too. I don't remember exactly what. Did they take Antioch as well? No. One of them took, yeah, I don't know. They divided things up pretty much, you know, like, so the supposed Germans here, Godfrey, he's the one who gets into Jerusalem. Somebody takes Tripoli. That's a big section. Somebody takes Antioch, and somebody takes Edessa. So that's, you know, all four factions, and I think each faction took one of these little crusader kingdoms, essentially. But I may be mistaken. Could be like Bohemond and Tancred split, and one took Edessa and one took something else. Although I have the feeling that Raymond took Tripoli because Raymond was a common name later on in Tripoli. Of course, there's Acre too. But I think this is all Kingdom of Jerusalem stuff, which would go to Godfrey. I don't remember. It's Tuesday morning. It slipped below freezing last night, which I guess is kind of interesting. I'm toying with what to do. Yesterday, I dealt with a couple of things, and I mailed a letter that I didn't feel safe putting in my mailbox down at the street because the U.S. Postal Service has really degraded in the past decade or so. And also, I picked up some ice cream. I wanted a treat or something. I didn't want to walk too far. So I went to the local market of no choice, and ice cream was... They had some ice cream on sale for about the price that ice cream normally is at the store I prefer to go to, but that's further away. And I'm not sure what I'm going to do today. I might do laundry. It's supposed to be another pretty day. Chilly, but not cold, like in the 50s. But anyway, while I debate that... oh, no, the thing I forgot to say. So for the last... for the last year or two, whatever, I've been coming down, you can't really see anything back here, except a glare of the light. I've been coming down the back way with my shopping, and it's been hard in the last year because they collected some branches up in the path that I usually used, but there's another path, but there were a couple of big tree branches there. And yesterday I moved one of those tree branches and said, yeah, I don't really care if this one's moved, so I put it back. And then I went to another one and I tried moving that, and it was basically a whole tree, but I ended up just cracking the branch off. And my arms have been hurting since. I was afraid I might have broken my finger the way it just snapped. I thought I was moving it, and I was apparently breaking it. I gave a scared to all hell to the guy who was working in the park. Just the noise of it snapping. I'm like, ugh, beast mode. I don't know. All right. I gotta sort these out again and go through that initial stage. The diplomacy is not that big a deal. The reinforcement, I don't think there is any for this turn. The only reinforcement that's due to come is Kerboga, unless something shows up by card. And, then I build my armies, and essentially, I got to build my armies before I know how many points I have, which puts you in a kind of a weird situation where you have to kind of guesstimate what sizes you want and everything. And that did not go very well last time. For example, I left Stephen without an army because ideally I didn't want him there, but I got a point draw that he would have been there, so I'll try to modify that. Most of the leaders I do want split up the way they are, more or less. And they don't have much choice because they've already split up on the board all over the place. The Muslims are different. They probably want to gather their forces so that they have enough to be able to deal with Crusader forces to any degree. They have a lot of, these little forces of like 10 strength points or something. They really need to get their national power together to face one of the big stacks of Crusaders. And I know this from the original Crusades game. Frank's got the same kind of point distribution they had before, so I put one of each card in there. This time Stephen has 10 strength points with him, so he can operate on his own and reduce the attrition. Got a really bad choice here. I have 6 points. I could run Adamer twice. He's got a decent sized force. All of my southern Franks are here, but I'm looking at, it's time to take Antioch. So I am just going to play Raymond once and drop him in there. That gives me less capabilities and whatnot. But I don't know. I don't know what else to do. I could, make a run down here against him, but he has, this is a much weaker town, so it might be of some value. But I don't know. I'm not going to end up in command of Antioch, am I? I mean, I might. It becomes this hard thing because everybody's got to kind of make some kind of decision. The commander is chosen among the players, and they fail if they can't choose a commander. So they might come down to let's do a die roll. But if there's only one Raymond card in the deck, he's a bad choice. And other people can make that argument. Whereas 2 Adamer cards might not be that bad a choice. Yeah, let me put 2 Adamer in. I think that gives me a more flexible option. And I'll just leave Raymond where he is. This was a bad turn given what's happened to get such a crappy number. To think that I probably should have had the initial events dealt out. First of all, for the Crusaders to do what they need to do, they kind of need more bonuses. Things like the fleets or whatever available to them. Things like the Bunamedes card. On top of that, it gives them a slight advantage. They've got 4. The Muslims only have 3, but the Mosuls are probably not going to be interfering directly, and maybe the southern Syrians aren't going to be directly interfering with the early stages of the game. So I think overall it probably gives the Crusaders an advantage. But the problem is, these aren't all hold cards. What happens if you get a non-hold card? And the rules just did not explain what to do about those starting event cards, except, and not in the setup, except in the events section where they said everybody gets one. And I just didn't know how to cope with that. So I said, fine. I couldn't find any errata or nothing in the living rules that clarified it. So I decided to go without it. It was a mistake, I'm pretty sure. But we'll see. I've got the deck filled out. It's pretty much like last time. You get some surprises in there where someone, like Raymond gets frozen out. About the Armenians, nobody bid on them. Why? Well, because you have to be active to do it. And I was looking at the resources the Crusaders had and saying, yeah, that's going to help me get across the board a little quicker. Well, it kind of didn't. I could have extended my movement and reduced the costs, the risks that I had a little bit. I thought it was going to apply again to the in-place attrition. And I also thought it would apply to siege attrition, and I'm not sure it does there either. Oh, you can use resources on siege attrition. See, the problem is things are in different and annoying places. But I'm just trying to make sure that I can't pay off forage attrition. I don't know what I'd do if I could. There were some forces that got reduced too much. Here we go. Unlike siege attrition, point ravaged attrition may not be negated by spending resources. There's no equivalent, well, there is sort of an equivalent in the Old Crusades. The way the Old Crusades worked was you accumulated attrition by moving, you accumulated attrition by staying in place, but it was the same attrition. If you didn't move, you took a higher attrition rate. So it was actually advantageous to move a little bit, which kind of makes sense. You're leaving the area that you've taken all the food from. And then within cities, they had their own attrition capability, which is kind of like the resources. But you also had treasuries, which are like the resources, and those treasuries could be mobile. You just had all kind of different things, and basically they all worked the same. Here, they all work kind of differently. Like, the movement attrition has that magic 14. This is just a mechanically a more complex game, because you've got to balance all those different things in. So it's not like you just look on one table and can figure out what you're going to face. And also, they're not all payable, which, kind of came as a surprise to me. I didn't want to look it up because I know these rules are not organized all that well for lookups. As opposed to Combat Commander, but they damn well better be organized well for lookups in Combat Commander, because you're going to be spending most of your game looking up, what does this card do? What happens because I just drew this? We opened up with a Crusader fleet. And I got to look up the independent leaders rule, because I'm not sure if I can absorb, I don't think I can absorb Baldwin now. And then the Crusader fleet had no effect. And again, it feels to me like the lack of really good coverage in the setup telling me to give everybody a card and telling me how they can have an event card when some of the events are not hold cards. How that's supposed to be handled led me to this situation that I think is pretty bad. But we shall see. But then I drew a Baldwin card, and I decided to make sure that I didn't take attrition losses. He has a good rating, so he's likely to get to go again. Yeah, he didn't. I probably should have upped my chances of that. But again, if I don't get the continuation... So if I don't get the continuation here, I wouldn't have gotten it here, so I wouldn't have been able to lay this under siege. I'd just be sitting there. If I can be the first person to lay it under siege, I feel like that gives me some sort of argument to be at least in the mix for the people who get to roll for or get to negotiate. Hey, who's in charge here? There we have it. Adamar has gone in. Reason why I gave him a couple of cards and generated a full siege on Antioch. Full siege just means that a sortie out isn't going to be that dangerous. This guy's got 10 strength points. Adamar's only got 20. I could be in some serious danger if I didn't do a full siege, but this does mean I'm in danger from an external attack. Diplomacy facets of this game are very much like the ones in the old Crusades game. And they're a big part of what kind of feels funny and sort of feels like it doesn't really work right. They were lifted. It doesn't feel like much was changed from them. And it's kind of this, yeah, well, you can agree to work together, but somebody gets all the advantages from you doing that. So like Antioch, the Crusaders kind of need it, but it's really, really valuable. It's worth 15 victory points. And if somebody grabs it, they've got a huge jump on everyone else. Now, they also probably don't want to commit themselves down to getting Jerusalem, but they might put themselves in the mix for Jerusalem just so they don't get the, I don't know what it is, I wanted to say dissension, but that's something specific in this. They may suffer dissension from it, but they lose like 20% of their forces to people who are interested in going after Jerusalem. You don't really want to lose those forces, so put it down. Maybe you get lucky somehow, you know. Just gotta get rid of these. There are actually too many of these. There's like 5 of them. And I think you're only basically allowed to use 3 of them in a game. Ridwan, was out of focus for a moment there. Ridwan here got an activation. He moved forward, grabbed 5 more troops. He's got a 21 strength force, maybe enough to handle Admar. I don't know. Remember, Admar is at full siege, so he's only half the size. But I want to gather more force. You know, I want to gather enough forces to have a shot at him. I do have another Ridwan card in the deck, so I don't actually, like, part of me might have wanted to roll and get more troops directly, but I don't know. I decided to go in this direction instead. This direction means I probably want to get out of here so I don't automatically lose a strength point, but that precludes me from mustering in Latakia. Hassan, again, the guy who has to raise troops, decides to go here. He gathers the excess troops from Samosata. I could bring this other commander over if I want, but I don't think I need him. And then he gets here, had to do a stop here, gets here, does another stop, doesn't get a second continuation. He's not very good. He should have another card in the deck to begin the siege as well. There we go again, the blur. Jara Adaba card that I've got in the deck. He's over here. I can't coordinate. So if I looked this up, if he's an independent leader at the beginning, and I'm not going to worry about the independent leader counters. If I'm going to associate a leader in with another commander, I'm going to put him in the box of that other commander to move with him, just because I think that works more easily. Those boxes are kind of optional, which is, I guess, why the independent leader markers are necessary. But I can't move him up and join Ridwan. I can't gather forces here because he's my least high-ranked leader. So, whoa, this guy has 3 stars too on there, but not here. Wow. I don't know what's up. Maybe, I don't know. But anyway, and by the way, these boxes only work for the First Crusade. So you kind of do need the independent leaders, or else to utilize the boxes in the other crusades for things that they wouldn't normally be used for. But yeah, so I can't pick up additional troops. I can't incorporate myself into that. And I'm not big enough to cope with this. So Ridwan is kind of the only guy I have to do that, which sucks. Comes up again, drops a full siege into place. And then I think I'm going to break for a bit. I decided I'm doing laundry today. It's still morning. You know, I have trouble doing anything before noon, even when I wake up really early because it's cold and I don't know. It just doesn't feel like I should be out in the morning. I don't know what I'm gonna, what I'm gonna do with my day, but at the very least, I'll get laundry done. To some extent, I'm having, I luxuriated today. Normally, I just don't do anything, right? Today what I did was, got a weird spring there. was I made myself eggs Benedict, and I came up with a new technique, just minor variations to my techniques. I generally make 2 poached eggs for my eggs Benedict, so it uses up 3 eggs, because 1 yolk kind of covers 2 eggs kind of nicely. But the last couple times I've made it, I threw the white in from making the hollandaise in with the rest of the egg, and that gives me more filler, more food, whatever. But I'm like, that's almost, I'm basically looking at 2 eggs total anyway that way, and that's more than I usually have when I make eggs, either omelets or a poached egg or a fried egg or whatever. Usually I only make 1. So I'm like, yeah, 3 eggs seems extreme. So I just put the white in and poached 1 egg. And I found that the amount of yolk that 1 egg has, in addition to the hollandaise, which is the second yolk essentially, works out pretty well. It gets me a nice mix, and I get all the flavors I want and all the textures and everything. I love my eggs Benedict. I love hollandaise sauce, but I love eggs Benedict. I had some ham in there. I don't have tomatoes. I usually like to put tomatoes in. But yeah, it was, it feels, along with the ice cream that I got yesterday, which I'll probably have a bowl of ice cream at some point today too, before I finish my coffee, because I like it with coffee. It feels like I'm kind of taking a day of luxury out of things, but that doesn't mean I don't go for a walk. Might even go out and eat. Back up here, I spent some of the time today researching, looking online, but I think I have a pretty good idea about what's up with my tub. I knew what was up with it, but what needs to replace it. It turns out it's an easier model than I thought it was. I don't know why I thought it was a coal, but it's like a melon, whatever. And it turns out that reduces the amount of choices that it could be. And what's more, I found a really good video on it. I do have the thing to turn off the water at the street level now. Probably should get help if I'm going to do it, in which case maybe I wait. But I'm kind of considering, maybe not today because I did my laundry, it's afternoon already, but going out and getting the materials I need. I have everything listed and everything, and I don't know. I just don't know. But I'm actually kind of energized towards doing this. Another factor that might help with it, or that it adds to the advantages potentially there, is that I can check to see if they have wagon wheels. Not wagon wheels, but little shopping cart wheels, the kind that I use. Which I absolutely need to get more of. At the hardware store, the little one I went to had some wheels. They were mainly for lawnmowers, but that's what I accidentally bought before, and they won't fit. The plastic ones might have. They didn't have the size plastic ones I wanted. But anyway, all very interesting. Doubt I go today, but there are a couple of nice days coming, and maybe I can convince myself. So anyway, here we are at Onward Christian Soldiers. I'm kind of excited. I mean, normally I just grouse and complain about stuff. For whatever reason, a series of events just sort of made it so that, I feel like I should do this. Which is just odd for me. Okay. Let's see what we got. We got Armenians. Nobody's bid on the Armenians still. I'm kind of in the position that I was in with Combat Commander, where the initiative card, I never remembered it. I never remembered to do the Armenians. Now, none of the Crusaders can do them, but shit, man. I think the Northern Syrians would want to. I know why the Mosuls don't want to. They're going to be attacking them, so that's not a great idea. But Northern Syrians kind of have a reason. Russell's got Balduke, and I moved him up to join that siege. I got Crusader fleet, but I also got draw an event card. So let's see what he gets. Muslim reinforcements, the most recently so this is what I'm talking about. I don't know, what would happen with this if you started with this. Would you just get more troops? I don't know. Most recently activated Muslim faction gets ASPs equal to the total of 3 dice in one or more cities controlled by that faction which are not under siege. No more than half into any one city. Now, I only own 1 city, so I get half of 3 dice, but it's better than nothing. But again, that's why I was afraid to grab the event cards. I don't know where to put these. There's no discards for the event cards. I can just drop it underneath. But I'm going to get 5 strength points over there in Samosata. Moved forward from this space. Took a little bit of a risk. Was hoping to get some kind of siege capability. Didn't get a continuation. So now I'm stuck at a point again. Then he got an immediate event card with a fleet arrives. I get to place 1 Crusader fleet. Now I'm not sure which Crusader fleets I'm allowed in this scenario. There's something kind of weird. There's this Norman fleet. I know I'm not allowed the British or French fleets, if there are any. I think there's some. There's British ones. There's no French ones. I really don't know about this one. It's just kind of weird. Like there's no real explanation. There may be a list of which fleets apply to this scenario, but again, it's kind of hard to tell. So here we have the English fleet in the playing materials. I don't think that's an allowed fleet because they weren't involved. But I might be convinced that there's a Norman fleet in this one because I don't know where else it would be. Yeah, there is so much kind of left out in this game. That's kind of obnoxious. But anyway, I'm going to bring one of the other fleets in. It shows up in the Cyprus place. And this is, again, a card that I could not have held. Just, we'll bring in the Danes. And they show up here. I was expecting more fleets to arrive. This is like 1 fleet for this card. I don't know how many of these cards there are. There is a list that tells me... what is this called? 14. Yeah, fleet arrives. So there's 4 of them. So there's more chances that they can come in that deck. And there is also a redraw card in there, so I'm not too hosed by this. Again, this could have been played right at the beginning, like the reinforcements. I don't know what the automatics are. It seems a little unfair if there were some non-hold cards that aren't just reinforcements or something like that, that could have some effect on the turn if you're drawing like 4 of them on the first turn of the game. That feels weird if they could take effect. But if they can't take effect, I don't know. Again, the rules are just way too limited. There's just like 1 sentence that says each player gets 1, not in the setup. Okay, now Stephen of Blois, I was going to have him siege Aleppo, but then I realized he doesn't have enough troops. It's like 5 times the SDR that you need. He only had 10. He lost a couple on his first march, where I took a little bit of a risk to get to here to join Robert. Because, yeah, I don't know. Not for any good reason. But he ended up capturing both of these towns, sliding himself back here. I figure that's good. I don't know. I feel like I'm blundering around without any idea, and I don't have the money to hire myself any Armenians because my money's gone. It was only on the first turn. A couple of moves with Robert, Duke of Normandy. Moved down here, got a continuation. Moved down here, didn't get a continuation. Had to make a risk, 1 in 6 of losing something. This is Robert of Normandy. Robert of Flanders is still back here, hoping he could siege that, but I think I've used up all of the northern Franks now. I've got Godfrey, just drew him. He's got a pretty decent sized force. I actually don't even know if I could have sieged Antioch. It's a 7. Adnar could not have. Oops. If Godfrey moves up there, I think I have enough strength if they cooperate. They make some kind of deal. But Godfrey's a 3-star, so he's automatically in command if they do cooperate. Sounds good to me. I feel like I've done much. Battery's running lower. I'm going to break for a bit. Fuck around with some other stuff. I don't know. Maybe convince myself. I don't know. I don't know. It's pretty out. Big SDR of 7 is going to be really hard to cope with. I'm thinking about trying to do an assault or whatever because of that. Because what's in here, this Yog Soggoth or whatever, he's got 10 strength points. That's going to be hard to knock out. The SDR protects like 7 of them. If I ravage it, it gets me a ravaged marker. I don't know that that helps me with the full siege, with the siege attrition. I don't remember, again, it's like things are kind of spread out in different places. Ravaged attrition. Trying to find like when I ravage, what does it give me defense against? And again, I'm just finding these rules hard to cope with. They're the normal GMT structure, which doesn't guarantee that it's going to produce good results ever, is my problem. And when they do not have an index, it's particularly problematic. So ravaged attrition, something gives me that ravager marker. Like if I ravage, the ravager marker gives me some kind of negation. But I don't know if it's the ravaged attrition. Oh wait, here we have point and ravaged attrition, which are both the same thing. I just don't know how I'm gonna get the city. This was a serious siege that was hard to do, but it's kind of the first one that I'm trying to do. The assault table causes assault points and SPR. Siege attrition causes points here. What reduces the siege defense rating? That's my question. Because I'm on my second turn of siege here. And I'm not sure anything does, but I thought it did. We have assault points. We have resource points. I don't think that there's anything that reduces this big bad 7. Now, if I assault it, the walls will protect 7 of it, which makes it not even capable of being assaulted, basically. If I ravage it, we take the ravaging for siege attrition. Aha, here we go. Both forces add +1 to the city is ravaged. This does not apply to besieging forces bearing a ravager marker. That would give me a 1-turn chance to reduce the ASPs that I'm losing. But it's problematic because, I mean, I've got 10 fucking, well, I'll make it 11 because there's the garrison too. I've got 11 strength points I've got to get rid of there. But an assault just seems so bad an idea. I've got like 40 strength points. They've got 11. I've got probably more than 40. So say it's the 44 to 11. So I've got 4 to 1, which would give me a +2. Yeah, I think we want to assault, even though we got the possibility of losing some SPs. All right. Let's see if I do have that 44. This is Godfrey going here. He has 28, 48 in combination. So with the 11, I have +4. Well, I have 4 to 1, which means I get a +2 to the die roll. We just roll 1 die, which sucks. It's under siege. The Buddhamedes card. I don't think I'm allowed to play it. Nope. Could give it away or something, but I don't particularly want to. So let's do the assault. We get a 7, we get 2 assault points, and we cost them an ASP. Kind of cranky and tired because, you know, I got up at like before 6 a.m., I think. And it's like getting around 4 p.m. I decided not to go before I got cranky and tired, but I just wanted to. I think there's a good chance I go tomorrow, though. I knew today was pretty unlikely. Let's see what our next card would be. Our next card is a Bohemond card. He is the guy who has that, if he can set himself up. Now, Bohemond's over here, not really where I want to be. He's 3-star. He could conceivably get the advantage there. Or he could cut further south. I decided not to include myself in the Siege of Antioch. As I was walking through, I couldn't get any negotiation. Actually, I wasn't walking through, but I was next to it. I couldn't get any negotiation, whatever. They're just not willing to agree. It's kind of weird because this guy would be like, yeah, you can, but Godfrey is like, no, it's mine. It's like, come on. And here's the problem. I would be including these guys in there, so then I have to look and see, have they taken 2 sieges already on that? Although he could enter, I think if you enter, you automatically join the siege, though. So yeah, it's just this ugly, and I can't remember everything. So he's heading down, trying to get for, you know, he could have stopped at Latakia, but he decided to go all the way down to Jabala, because Latakia is not really worth anything. Tortosa would be easier to take, although we are exposing ourselves to a real force here with Dukak. Got Ridwan here, and I think I've already drawn a Ridwan card. I'm not positive. Early on. Yeah, there he is. So I've got the call of, if I want to reinforce with Ridwan, that means giving up my troop production. And here I can produce troops, so I'm going to do that instead. And after that I get Soakman. Oh, I get a chance of him actually getting a continuation. He does not. Who moves up to Tiberius. And I'm kind of like, there's this oppressive feeling of I'm missing something important. There's something about this game that I'm not getting. And I know that there are areas of the rules that I'm like just not comfortable about, having to do with leader ownership, having to do with the sieges, the attrition, all that kind of stuff. A lot of it feels like it's because of the way the rules are written. It's all there, but it's kind of jumbled together in, well, maybe it's not all there because there's stuff like the event cards that, when I did try to apply it, I'm like, yeah, I don't have the rules well enough to do so. And when I feel that, it increases my fatigue levels. This was something that happened a lot in, what was it, Nations at Arms. That's a compass game? Or is it? No, I can't remember. I think, yeah, that's a compass game. And, where it's just like, I'm pretty sure I'm fucking something up. And so I don't want to play. It's like at some point or another, I'll still be sure I'm fucking something up, but I'll have gotten to the point where I'm like, yeah, I'm comfortable with the fuck ups I'm making. So Dukak has moved here. Now the problem is Bohemond could withdraw, but that causes a number of problems. Demoralizes, which we found some chits for that somewhere or another. I don't remember where they are. Destroyed. Buddha means. I don't remember where the demoralists are. There's Ascension. Here they are. On the back of the Ravagers. But more importantly, I'd have to take point attrition. And I think I used my Bohemond cards. It's hard to tell. I have to look here, but I think I used both of them. The deck's pretty low. So I couldn't get into a better location. So I think I'm going to defend over here in Jabala. Make sure about that I used 2 Bohemond cards. Didn't. That leads all kind of interesting things. So Edaba here. Oh, it's this guy. Jahsa. He's not named that there. Wait, that might be his backside. No, that's Emir Ed. I don't know. We could siege him, but I think I'm going to hold and fight in the battle. What's important is I don't take I can't take a harassment attack because I'm defending the town. So, this is our first battle. And we do worry about tactics still, in this case. So who do we have here? We have Dukak, who is Southern Syrian. He has 20 strength points with him. He'll be attacking with a 3. I'm bringing Tripoli with me because I could split troops off if I get the right point things. I absorbed him. That's fine. Okay, so I'm a 3 and Bohemond's a 4. The Crusaders are defending. And we look for... That doesn't matter. Okay. A 3 at 2 is a C, which means I'll be approaching with caution. A 3 at 4 is a D. So then we look to the formation with the Muslim attackers. C versus D is an SO, a standoff. There's no battle. Both sides lose a point. The active force does get a chance to continue. So Bohemond will lose 1, but not a knight. He can't use his knights here, but he doesn't have very many. And Dukak goes down to like 19, which I have to deal with. I don't get a continuation. I came in this space. That's important because I'm in a point, essentially. I don't own the town, so I can't supply out of it. Since I didn't get a continuation, I can't keep going. And we look at the next one, and it's going to be Tancred, who I have down here, and I might want to move him forward to support this. Problem with that is I can't fight. And I think me moving into there is going to force a fight where I can't use these forces. But I have to look at the multi-force stuff and try to figure that out. It's really such a mess, the way it's explained. I really like the way the old Crusades worked, where you didn't have this kind of problem because everybody used plotted movement. If they ended up in the right places, they could operate together. But what didn't work in that was that everybody used plotted movement, and there were there were no strength points for the Crusaders. They just had a bunch of leaders, and many of those leaders could move without taking attrition. Now, I tried to fix that a little bit, but if you look at my playthrough of it. So I've got to try to figure out and puzzle what the fuck, how this actually works. It's like just a mess of explanation in the rules, and I think I don't want to go. I may join the siege instead, but I kind of want to go. I don't know. What does that water path cost me? It's not rain, so I think I can cross it. Again, it's like, I know there's a special rule there. I don't know what it applies to. And so this is rain at +2 attrition. Winter's the +3 attrition. I think the rain is not in play here, but again, I got to go look that up and see what the fuck it's about. I don't like point-to-point games in a lot of ways because they make maneuvering and everything just more complex. Usually it has to do with interceptions and everything. This one has to do with creating forces. Role I want. I can move into this space and I do not have to attack. It's under reinforcing armies. If an enemy army is already in the space the active army is reinforcing, he need not attack the enemy army. The only time this is allowed, if he does attack, however, the other allied army may not join the attack because they're separate. And if the enemy attacks, I get both armies as the defense. So that's the best of both worlds. That's what I'm going to aim for. Potential problem is this Ed Daba can come out and intercept me. I think he needs to make a command roll to do that. And he's a weaker force. And it would be trying to save the southern Syrians, which I probably don't care that much about, but they are coming up to help me. Got an Adnar card. He moved into this location and then became part of the siege, which means he's already been activated twice. So his card can't be used. And again, there's not a really good way to represent this stuff. I don't know. That gets me to a Bohemond. Bohemond could attack, but what he can't do is use Tancred with him. Maybe I could take something like Homs or something. I'm just going to pass. Puts me on Balduk, who I think is down here. Now he moved and joined the siege, but hasn't been used in it, which means I think he's got the opportunity to do something. And that something might mean that siege attrition works for me by making him a Ravager. But now I have to worry, is he able to make this a Ravager too? And who do we have? And so again, a series of lookups to try to understand this interaction between different forces. That is probably the most painful thing in this game. And I really wasn't expecting it to be this much of a bitch. Thing that I don't remember seeing in the errata. I'm not going to look it up, but I'm pretty sure it's wrong. So here under Point Ravaged, Each force on a point or in a ravaged town or city is subject to attrition. To avoid point ravaged attrition, the armies or individuals must be inside a non-ravaged city or town controlled by that faction, or by a faction that allows the city or town to be so used, or the entry space of such a city. Okay, none of those apply because I'm sieging it. And then the next one is, have not already undergone siege attrition that phase. Is that the right thing? Yeah, to avoid. Because otherwise I'd take, and we have an ordering here, but it's the attrition phase, letter E. I feel like I'm gonna have, this battery's almost done. E does siege attrition first, yeah. So if I ravage that, now what's my modifier for the ravaging is the whole fucking question. There was something that gets rid of my ravage problem. And I don't remember what it is. Like, is it only in siege attrition? Do I still face it for the ravage attrition? I don't remember. By puzzling out and flipping through 3 or 4 different rules here to get to this, is that if I ravage this, I will still undergo siege attrition, which means I don't get a bonus out of the ravaged marker, as far as I can see. Although maybe I do. Siege attrition, both add +1 if you're, yeah, so I'd avoid that +1. So I think I want to do that because that's my best chance of whacking this. And so I get a ravager on the entire force. I get a ravaged on this city. And that's what I'm doing. And that's all I'm doing. There's nothing else I could really do. I could do an assault, but I can't bring the main force with me. Although, I don't know, maybe it would be worth it. Balduc here has, what the fuck? He has 10 strength points. There's 2 here. So that would give me a 5-to-1 on the siege attrition. I can't bring the other forces with me. Although I have to bring all forces in my sieging army. So I'm not sure. That would give me, I don't have more than 5 times, so that would give me a +2 to the die roll. I might get the 2 assault points and win. Yeah, instead of ravaging, do we want to go for that? I don't know, because siege attrition, the ravaging, these can be, okay, so the ASPs don't disappear, though, is the problem. So he could avoid a couple of hits on the siege attrition table. And this is what's killing me. The way I see it is I have two problems. One is the siege attrition table. I'd have to do 4 hits to be able to overcome them, which means I'd need a 9. And this is a city, so we get 2 dice with a +1. That's not bad. Whereas if I assault, I'd be a +2. On here. And I would need to roll a 5 to take the city. So I think I've got a better chance by doing what I did. Either one ends my activation and I get no continuations. And I am going to pause here because I'm almost out of battery. I was hoping to get through the card pile this time. Okay, last couple. Soakman ran up to here. Didn't get a continuation, so I couldn't pull him forward. And then Ducoc got to go, and he pulled his way out to Tripoli. Which, you know, seems like a good idea. Basically, I didn't have the force to face Bohemond and Tancred there. That puts me at the end, which means, okay, operations, which means I handle the attrition. And I'm pretty sure, I've been doing this so far, that you have to take point attrition if you're outside any cities or towns, even if you're at the city entrance, which feels like you're kind of encamped right in front of the city, so it shouldn't really make much difference, but it's an oddity to me because you're guaranteed to lose one. The first thing we're going to face here is the siege attrition. Let's take a look at this force first, or the siege first. Melitene. Here we have 1 strength point plus a guy inside, and, well, we'll use the black die for this. It's 2 dice because it's a city. And the defender adds 1 if it's a blockaded board. It's not. The city is ravaged, so this is +1. It's not going to affect the besieger. These are not Muslims or Saracens. The other side is. But we do have ASPs. So we roll 2 dice, I think at +1 for the ravaged. And we get a grand total of 4. That's going to be 2 ASPs lost. Ooh, buy off I think is 2 per. So I can't spend both. Let's take a look. Fuck. I can't fucking find it. I forgot to do, somebody took movement attrition who might have had knights and I forgot about it. I don't know where the fuck the buy off is. I can't find, I mean, you know, this is one of the things, is it's just this line of text. It's like not lots of different numerical sections and stuff. It's harder for me to operate when I'm dealing with like big paragraphs of text. It's not as bad as some formatting, but GMT is always bad about this for me. Maybe it's under resources. May not be, unlike siege attrition. No, we're doing siege attrition. Fuck. Okay. Siege attrition, unfortunately, is not with the attrition rolls, which are under movement, even though that wasn't movement attrition, that's point ravaged attrition, which has nothing to do with it. Siege attrition is under sieges, and is not something that's handled, you know, through the siege mechanism particularly. So it's ravaged +1. Can use resources to nullify attrition losses. It doesn't tell you. 2 resources to nullify each ASP, each point loss. So I only had 2 resources here because it had an SDR of 2. So this goes away, and now we have 0 resources in this city. But the garrison point doesn't go away. And now we go to the other side of siege attrition, which is the forces there. Now their size does not matter, but they get a +1, but that's negated by the ASP loss. And we make a quick roll. We get a 7. That means I'm going to lose 3 ASPs, but I can negate these. And over here, I have points that are within limited if it's limited. If it's unlimited, they definitely can. So I can get rid of 1 of those, and then I have to take 2 off of these leaders. I'm going to just take it off this because it actually doesn't matter. I can shift things at the beginning of the turn anyway. They're together. And then the other siege attrition is over here. These did not do their thingy, whatever that is. There are only two, no, those are assault points. Okay, so, oh, these are Muslim. I get one back because Muslims have an additional -1 when they're besieging. Or wait, was that besieging? Or was that, yeah, it had to be besieging. Yeah. I didn't remember if it was besieging or the other kind, and I look for the force. Okay. Over here, we got Yagi there. He's got 9. Doesn't matter. It's not ravaged. He has no bonuses going for him. So a big 2 means I only lose 1. This has 7 SDR, so I can bring that down to 5, and I take no losses. And then this force, and it has to be split evenly, also not ravaged, gets a big 7, so they're going to lose 3. And I'm guessing Godfrey, since he's in charge, can allocate them. It doesn't have to be exactly proportional. It's Admiral there, so Admiral is going to go down to 18, and Godfrey loses 1. Let's look for some place where we have point attrition. It's not here. These guys are fine. This guy is out in point attrition. So that is Robert of Normandy. Now he's going to be facing 1 ASP loss right off the bat. He has 27, which I think gives him 2 points, plus the rating of this space, brings him to 3 points. And if he rolls lower than a 3, he loses that many additional units. He does not. That is 3, so it's 0. So Robert will lose 1 of his. And we're going to do that wherever else I am, which is quite a few places. This can't be bought off, so like this guy is going to suffer a loss. At recovery, the only things to be recovered are besieged or ravaged spaces, neither of which can. So, because they're under the siege, besieged or besieged and ravaged, which means we don't gain anything there, so we get to the end of the turn. That is the end of the year. I have to figure out when Karboga comes in. It's late in the year, and dish out the cards to everybody, yada, yada, yada. Actually not late in the year. It starts on the first turn of the year. But anyway, that's where we are. I'll put a couple of dice here to remind me of what's going on. And we're going to load this up. This is 1097. We'll put it all up in one. We'll probably break 1098 into a couple of years. 1099 goes until close to the end of the year. All right, up it goes.